All right, everybody, welcome back. This is the Horn Takes Podcast, your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I am your host, Sean Redfern. It is Friday Eve. We love Friday Eve, and this is a special Friday Eve for a couple reasons. We've got NCAA regionals coming up tomorrow afternoon, and we've got Mike Hardball Hardge joining us today. Former first-round draft pick, right, in the MLB? Second round. That's close enough for me, man.
I like it. I like it, though. I like it.
First
I
day.
I should have been a first round.
Yeah, you got robbed, man. First day is good stuff.
Yeah, no doubt.
And obviously Hardge is the host of the Hardge Knox Life Show on AM 1300 The Zone. He does that every morning from 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday. Yes,
outstanding.
Sir.
We've heard him on the Longhorn Radio Network. We love hearing him call games with Craig Way down there in Austin, and I believe we've seen you a few times on TV calling some games on ESPN Plus, stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
So Hardball Hardge is
opportunity to that.
Awesome. That's great, man. So Hardball Hardge is a baseball guy, and that's why we got to talk to him today for sure. By the way, you can also check him out at Hardball Hardge on Twitter. If you can't remember how to spell that or you can't find it, go to my page. You'll see him. We follow him. He follows us. Good stuff there. Today we're going to talk about this College Station Regional. Obviously, the tournament starts tomorrow. We got to talk a little bit about David Pierce and just, there's been a lot of talk all season about should he go, should he stay. I don't necessarily have one way or the other, but I wanted to get Hardge's thoughts on just what he thinks may happen. I don't know. And then obviously we got to talk about SEC baseball. They've been dominating the college baseball scene for the last few years, especially when you start talking about Omaha. And this year so far, as we go into the tournament, no different. So we got to talk about that. And I think it just makes sense as Texas rolls into the SEC next year to start having more conversations about the SEC. Let's talk about this Texas baseball team real quick. So we talked last week after day one of the Big 12 tournament. We did a show, and and the name of the show, the title of the show was "Don't Let It Slip Away." And what we were talking about was all this momentum that the Texas Longhorn baseball team had built up over their last few weeks of Big 12 regular season play. We thought it was good stuff. They went on the road. They beat OU. They beat Oklahoma State in a series. And so a lot of good stuff happened. And the pitching, to me, kind of it didn't get great, but it kind of mellowed out. It kind of got to where it was consistently what it was. You kind of knew what to expect out of the rotation every single game, and the bats absolutely came alive over that stretch. Not that they were dead or anything like that, but they really started pushing that 128 we talked about earlier in the season, Hardge.
Yep.
So then they roll into the Big 12 the Big 12 tournament, and they go 2 in barbecue, and it was not pretty, man. They could not beat a Tech team that hadn't won a game in the Big 12 in over a month. They couldn't score more than 4 runs against a Tech team that had been giving up 12 per plus over the last 3 weeks before the Big 12 tournament. And then they dropped game 2 to an average Cincy team after a late rally. That game really wasn't close until the end of the game. So they put themselves, they kind of played themselves out of what I think most people thought was a 2 seed for sure into a 3 seed in one of the tougher regionals in the country. What do you make of all that, Hardge? Is that just a bump in the road, or do you think maybe some of that magic towards the end of the season starting to wear off a little bit?
Well, it's a lot to unpack in that particular instance right there, Sean. And thank you for having me on, man. I always enjoy talking to you and chopping it up.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you and keep up the great work. You sit here and you look at the season as a whole, and you went through the majority of it, and you talk about those series that Texas was able to win going down. They'll lose the Friday night, but they'll win 2 games Saturday and Sunday. They'll lose win a Friday, lose Saturday, but find a way to win on Sunday. Or they'll win the first 2 games of the series and lose the last game on a Sunday. So, but the fact of the matter was they continue to win series. And as the season goes on, you were expecting them to go to the Big 12 tournament, perform well, get a couple wins, possibly get that 2 seed, or maybe even sneak into one of those situations where they're able to host. A lot of times hosting has to do with the attendance, your facilities, and things like that. So they could have snuck into that section, would have been great. But they didn't. They struggled. You highlighted the fact that they didn't score runs against two teams that they should have beaten. It was set up perfect for them to advance. Let's just say that. And then you look at it and you say, okay, well, what went wrong? I I don't know if anything went wrong. It's been a microcosm of the entire season. You start to look at this team and you believe in certain weeks, okay, we're about to turn that corner, about to be a dominant team again. You said it, that pitching staff kind of became who they are. Hey, this is what we got. Let's go score runs. Let's be consistent. I got a chance to talk to Will. We got a chance to talk to Jared Thomas the other day, and Jared Thomas was very open and honest about the season and the pitching staff, because the question was about pitching. And Jared said, well, we didn't do our jobs a lot of times at the plate either. We have guys that are up there dealing and pitching a great ball game, but we're not scoring runs. You just alluded to it. They didn't score over 4 runs against Texas Tech, a team that had given up 12. So there were opportunities that were left on the table that I believe that these guys now are going back to the drawing board, so to speak, and trying to reprogram themselves. Jalen Flores, stud shortstop, who grew a lot this year from last year, where he was DH and now he's an everyday shortstop. Was up for Player of the Year. I mean, just put up great numbers. He said it. They asked him about the season. He said, "Well, a new season starts right now." So that is where I believe a lot of the leaders and the players are now at in their mind is we can talk about the past, but that's why it's the past. We are now in the moment, so let's go and try to change the narrative. Did you think that the team last year was going to make it as far as they did, was a fly ball away from it? Yes, same situation. Great hitters, inconsistent on the mound at times, but they found a way to get it done. And if they're going to be able to get it done, they got a tough regional because they got a familiar foe in Louisiana, who they started off the Coral Gables regional off with last year, and now they have an opportunity. If they can get past game one, they have an opportunity to possibly be playing Texas A&M, and at that point, it doesn't matter who's the stronger team. It's a rivalry game, so things are kind of out the window.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You just said it's a new season. I think if anybody that's talking about college baseball right now is saying that phrase, it's a new season, and I've got it written down right here on my outline for this show. Absolutely great segue. It is a new season. The road to Omaha starts tomorrow. It doesn't matter what happened all season. Clearly, you would want to have had a better performance in the Big 12 tournament. I'm sure Texas A&M would rather have had a better performance in the SEC tournament than they did, but they didn't, and now it's time to start all over again. The one thing I do kind of wonder about is it's one thing to say it's a new season, let's change the narrative, but what are some of the, and you've played at a really high level, so what are some of the things that the guys are going to have to do? Maybe do you think they were, as they went into that Big 12 tournament, and some of these other situations, like down in Minute Maid, every single time we play in Minute Maid, do you think they go into those situations maybe pressing a little too much? What do the guys got to do in the lineup and on the mound to really live out, let's change the narrative as we head into this regional?
I mean, it's a simple saying, and I know, but it means a lot, and it's just execute. You got to execute everything that is put in front of you. You have to make the routine play. You don't have to make the spectacular play. Make the routine play. Situational baseball is always going to be something that I've talked about anytime I get a chance to say anything. We live so much for the long ball. We were talking about the numbers that Texas was able to put up this season, challenging that 121, 128 number, but we're really needing to drive runners in, get them over, get them in the old school way. David Pierce is one of those guys that's kind of a hard nosed. He loves to play the game. He's an old school guy. Well, in these particular moments, when you're an old school guy, sometimes you got to revert back to old school ways. Maybe this team works on a hit and run. Maybe they bunt a guy over. Situationally, they have to change and make sure that if they get guys in scoring position, do whatever it takes to get them in. Don't always have to play for the long ball. Then on the mound, got to be able to throw strikes. The hardest part of this game is making sure that you can pound the strike zone. Because if you pound the strike zone, guys behind you are ready to make plays. It makes it difficult. A lot of teams can't defend a walk. I don't think anybody has been
Right.
able to defend a walk. So make sure that they put the ball in play and put the pressure on them to execute what they're trying to get done as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I'm not a huge baseball guy. I've said that a million times, but I did coach my son a few years. And one of the things we used to talk to the boys about was let the game come to you. And I'm sure that is the same type of mindset you have to have at any level. A lot of times I think guys go up there and say, all right, I got 2 guys on. We're down by 2. It's the bottom of the 9th, 1 swing, and I can win this thing. And that's true. And you're capable, but you got to just let it come to you. You can't go get it. That's not how baseball works. You got to let the ball come to you, whether you're playing defense or whether you're at the plate. And so I think certainly we know this Texas team is capable. They have a lot of really good players. There's a lot of talent there, even on that pitching staff that's been much maligned all season. There's some guys that can execute at times. We just need them to do it a little bit more. As we head into this College Station regional tomorrow afternoon, you got number 1 seed, is number 3 national seed, Texas A&M. They got number 4 seed Grambling. I don't think there's a lot of people on the planet that think Grambling really has a shot in that one. They're a 500 team on the season, and I mean, let's just be honest, they don't have the horses that Texas A&M does in the lineup or on the mound. So I would be extremely shocked to see Texas A&M drop that one. And then you follow that up with 2 seed Louisiana. They got to be out for a little bit of revenge after the Coral Gables regional last year against Texas as the 3 seed. What do you think about Texas winding up in that regional with Texas A&M, just from a committee perspective? I kind of feel like it seems like the last couple years, ever since the SEC announcement came out that Texas was moving to the SEC, all these committees try to figure out a way to get Texas and Texas A&M playing something together when the stakes are the highest. What do you think?
Well, I think when you looked at how this region came about, David Pierce was on my show this morning, and he had mentioned maybe Santa Barbara or possibly Tennessee. A lot of people thought it was going to be either Arkansas or North Carolina. There were so many different scenarios that were out there, and Texas kind of let things, you mentioned it, lost in the Big 12, kind of changed the way people were viewing it. But you're right. When these committees start to look at it, you start to believe that they're like, okay, let's see how we can get this figured out, because this is going to pack the house. Well, A&M would have packed the house anyway. They
Right.
were hosting a regional. It didn't matter if Texas were there or you and I were there.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't have mattered. They would have packed the house. So that one, I think, was, okay, you're not going to exceed any more money than what you thought you were going to. Now, if it would have been a super regional where Texas had been somewhere else and then A&M won their regional and Texas and them were paired up and they got a chance to play each other, now that's a gate that you would definitely want to see. Winner take all, ending it all. So it changes the way people look at it. But to me, when you start breaking down all of this and start looking at all of this, I look at this seedings and everything that's involved in it. I look at it in a particular way, because this is a rivalry that has been around since the beginning of time. This is going to be one that is going to be renewed. But this is the only sport where these teams play each other every year. So it wouldn't have been, they came to Austin this year and beat the Texas Longhorns. So this could be a revenge game for the Longhorns. But first, they have to get past Louisiana.
That's right. And Louisiana can really pitch this year. I think it was the Raging Cajuns a few years ago that just absolutely set the college baseball world on fire with home runs. And they've kind of flipped that on its head, at least for this season. Really, really good pitching team this season. And sometimes I think that game 1 matchup for Texas is going to be pretty interesting. Texas, they've hit some really good pitching this year, and then they've struggled with some really good pitching this year. So it'll be interesting to see how the bats do in that one. I think this is a super tough draw for Texas, just because, like I said, Louisiana can pitch, and then obviously If you get past that one, you got A&M more than likely coming out of that game one with Grambling. And they've already beaten Texas this year, and honestly, it wasn't all that competitive. I think that one could have been a lot worse than it actually was. That lineup for Texas A&M is pretty damn scary. I like a lot of the SEC lineups, and really, Texas got a scary lineup as well. But they got some guys that can mash the baseball pretty good. How do you see this regional playing out as we look at it from these game ones? Maybe into the first elimination games and so on through Sunday. What do you think is going to happen in this one?
Who has the most pitching left is going to be the winner of this. It's like you talked about coaching your kid in Little League or select baseball. If you don't have the right amount of pitching, it makes it tough for you to extend yourself throughout the weekend because of that simple fact. You got to have guys that know how to toe the rubber and be ready to go. You got to have guys pitch at an elite level. Every pitch has to be executed. So in those particular moments, when you're sitting there and you're thinking about how this is going to play out, we know the bats are going to be there for all the teams. They wouldn't be here if they weren't scoring runs. Texas A&M at one point was the number one team in the nation for quite some time. As you mentioned, they're the number 3 overall seed for a reason. If their pitching staff is on, it's going to be tough for everyone to beat them. But the one thing that I will continue to say is it's still baseball, regardless of the teams that are out there. It's the one sport where you don't have to be the biggest, strongest, baddest dude on the planet to be able to go out there and get your head knocked off by a team that you might take lightly. That's the beauty of baseball. We've seen crazier things happen. I know we're talking about Texas and A&M getting together in that second matchup, but both Louisiana, and I'm not going to put Grambling in that same category because people will look at me like I'm crazy, but I've seen crazier things happen throughout these tournaments.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of almost all of the collegiate tournaments is you kind of don't know what's going to happen, and I know we're not talking football, but it'll be interesting to see this year as we go to that 12-team playoff. How many of those types of deals we get to see because I think in football the upsets are less likely I feel like than they are in basketball and baseball, but I still think there's more of a chance now that you're going to see some crazier things happen in college football. I think for me, man, it's just tough for me to see Texas coming out of this region. Right. But for the thing that you mentioned, the pitching and not that they don't have some arms that are capable. It's just for whatever reason they haven't found a lot of guys that can execute. Gage Bame can't come out of the bullpen all weekend and save the day like he has a lot down the stretch for Texas. The starters are going to have to give them some innings, and some guys coming out of the bullpen are going to have to step up as well. So let me ask you this, Hardge. If Texas manages to win this regional and advance to the super regionals, who's the one guy on this Texas team that would have stepped up and just kind of played above their head this weekend to get that done?
Porter Brown. He was a guy that was very experienced last year, put up unbelievable numbers. He was the guy that pretty much carried this team late last year with all of his power numbers, his clutch hitting. He hadn't done that at all this year. He has not shown up. So if he comes in and is locked in, and he's gotten every opportunity to play. He's gotten every opportunity to be in that lineup every single day. So for me, if Porter Brown somehow, some way has the ability to do something with this team, I think they have a chance to really push somebody. That would be my pick. On the mound, it has to be LeBaron Johnson. It has to be LeBaron Johnson, another player that a lot of expectations were put on him to the season. And rightfully so. I think these were things that he earned. But was it lightning in a bottle? Maybe. For both of the guys. It might have been lightning in a bottle. But I need them to spark a match or something to get this party started so everybody can sit here and say, all right, these guys showed up in the big moments.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it so much from an offensive perspective, but I think if you're going to pick an offensive guy, Porter Brown is probably your guy. It's been an interesting season for him. Obviously, he started in the lineup. He should have started in the lineup. And then about midway through the season, Pierce started making some changes, and really him and O'Dowd kind of set for a while. And then here late, we've started to see those guys back in the lineup. Haven't seen a ton of production out of either one of them. I know O'Dowd got a big home run. I believe it was in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, he hit the ball well. I think he went 3 for 3 in that first game.
Yeah, that's right.
Big 12 tournament.
Yep.
But they came up short.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what that lineup looks like. I thought things were popping pretty good with Borba and D. Kennedy playing second base. So it'll be interesting to see kind of, where Pierce winds up with the lineup. And I think you're right from an offensive perspective. And LBJ was the guy I had written down. LBJ was really, really good in the Coral Gables regional last year. He got really good towards the end of the season, regular season, and Big 12 tournament last year. And so I think he's the guy that has to be able to come out and dominate a game at some point. And he's got the stuff to do it. For whatever reason, it just hasn't happened for him this season. Kind of like Porter Brown, it just didn't click this year for whatever reason. So that's my guy. I say if Texas advances to the Supers, LBJ came in and pitched like 7 innings and just mowed down somebody, and got them where they're at. Now this region is paired. I don't know much about UC Santa Barbara, but looking at this region that they're paired with, it doesn't look like that tough of a region. You got UC Santa Barbara, you got San Diego as the 2 seed, Oregon is the 3 seed, and Fresno State is the 4 seed. I hate to say it, but I feel like whoever comes out of this College Station regional has got to have a pretty good percentage-wise chance of making it onto the College World Series. Just based on now, we know anything can happen in baseball, but just looking at it on paper, it's not a super tough regional that they're paired with. Do you know much about UC Santa Barbara? I got to admit, I haven't seen them play, and maybe I'm just playing the name game, and that's why I think it looks easy, but I don't know. I haven't heard much about San Diego, Oregon, or Fresno State this entire season. So what do you think about that regional?
Don't forget, San Diego was a team that came in at the very beginning of the year and beat Texas.
That's true.
That's when people were like, "Wait a minute, what is going on?" Now here you get to the end of the season, and here's a team that advanced to the college regional. So it was a talented team. So yeah, initially you're looking at it, and like you said, you're playing the name game on a lot of them. Let's not forget them boys in California. They know how to play some baseball too. As a matter of fact, we get a majority of our players now from California. So,
yeah, I was just about to say
that as well. So I don't put it past them being ready to play.
Yeah, I was just about to say, man, as much guff as we give Oklahoma about winning with Texas players, we sure do a lot of winning in baseball with those California boys. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. David Pierce. So you're on Twitter. I'm sure you've seen all the conversation about David Pierce all season long. You're probably on some message boards too. Maybe not. You're probably a busy guy. I'm on there a little bit. So I've seen a ton of conversations this year. I mean, I've seen us go from man, we got to get him out of here right now. I mean, I've actually seen people say we got to fire him now, go find somebody else so we can be ready to go into the SEC. And I got to admit, I share a little bit of the, like, man, has Pierce run his course type of sentiment, but he's got to be the most consistently polarizing coach from a Texas perspective since Mac Brown. You got guys that are absolutely on board with him, and then you got guys that just want him gone. And I think both sides can make arguments that are generally, at least an acceptable conversation point. You look at Pierce, man, he's almost had his team in the College World Series 3 years in a row. Not a lot of guys have done that. You also look at a couple times they've gone, and it was a disaster. Like they snuck in kind of type of deal and just were not competitive at all when they got there. And then you look at the 21 team, and they were a couple plays away from winning the whole damn thing. And then you look at this year, and it's just been, man, this year has been tough for Texas baseball fans. Do you think there's anything? Do you think his job at all, one way or another, rides at all on what happens in this regional whatsoever?
I mean, you can make a case for both ends of it, like you said, and I keep going back to the fact, and I've got a lot of baseball experience that I spend time with, right? And the fact of the matter is, Texas baseball, regardless of the year, that he has been here has been in contention every single year. And that's all you want. It's all you want is to have the opportunity to compete every single year. And he finds a way to make that happen. If you'd have told me when they lost a game on a Tuesday night to UTRGV, they were picketing, trying to
Yeah.
get him out of there. But then they go on that run. They win all the series in the Big 12. And knowing what the Big 12 was, and now Texas is in a position that they're in a regional and they may win a regional. So to say that he hasn't had success, not you, but for the people on Twitter to say that he's not successful, I think you're wrong. The people that have been very critical of him in certain situations, fair. Everybody, when you're making the money that these coaches make, regardless of the school, you have to be up for the criticism. Do I think that a change is coming? Who's to say? Who's to say?
Yeah. It ain't
Because
me.
at the end of it all, you want to have a chance, right? That's what we're talking about. Texas has had a chance every single time that he's been there. A lot of it you can say is him, but majority of it you can say is on the players too. Are the players executing the things that they're being asked to do? So it is one of those wait and see deals. I've heard the same thing. He's got to win it. He's got to win it. But I mean, there's a lot. If that's the case, there's a lot of people that are going to be looking for work here pretty soon.
Yeah, I think it really is interesting. You look at what he's done since he's been here at Texas, and it's been, the majority's been really good, and there's been some great, trips into the tournament. They've gone through regionals and super regionals when a lot of people didn't think they were going to, and they've wound up in Omaha, and you cannot.
They were a fly ball away from possibly going to Omaha last year.
Exactly.
Lost in the lights.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's 3 in a row. That would have been 3 in a row for Pierce, and dudes just don't do that. And so you got to look at that. I think one of the things about Pierce that gets people is just maybe like the staff, continuity issues. And I don't know the insides of the program, but you just see guys coming in and out. You saw Tulo be here, then he was gone, then he's back. You've seen the different pitching coaches, and now we're to the point where Pierce is the pitching coach. And I think that's Pierce's background, when he was at Rice, was a pitching coach. But I think there's just some things like that, and then there's just it's like when Texas baseball is trending badly, it is bad, and it looks like the bad news bears out there sometimes, and I think that's where you get this polarization from. Augie had some bad baseball teams, but they were just kind of bad. They weren't like it wasn't like this Jekyll and Hyde thing that Pierce has got going on. Where sometimes they look like nobody in the country could beat them, and then the next week they just look like they couldn't beat a high school team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't really have an opinion either way. I just thought it's kind of a good question because we've been hearing it all season. What does he got to do?
Does he last year too? We heard it the year before.
Yeah,
It's still going to always be the question. If you're a coach at the University of Texas, your job is always in danger.
I think that's fair.
It is what it is when you come to the University of Texas. And I had a friend of mine tell me a long time ago that to be a head coach at the University of Texas, you have to be comfortable at who you are as a person, because it can eat you up, it can build you up, and you know this as well as I do. The higher you get, the further it is for you to drop down. And when you come down, it's like a house of cards a lot of times. So we'll see what happens, but let's hope we prolong this conversation because Texas continues to win in the regional.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get to see that all start tomorrow. We're excited. I know you're excited. Texas fans are excited. I think the college baseball world's a little excited to see Texas and Texas A&M maybe meet up there in a postseason game with a lot on the line. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, big weekend. Until you get to Omaha, at least we're talking. I don't know. When you factor everything together, the volume of baseball we're going to get and what it means, it's probably the biggest weekend of baseball all season besides the opening day. And then obviously when you get to the College World Series, And we cannot talk about that without talking about this SEC madness. They get a record 11 teams make the field this year. Every single one of them outside of one is a 1 or a 2 seed in their regional. And that's Florida. And I think Florida is a dangerous type of team that if they can get hot at the right time, they can absolutely blow that Oklahoma State regional out.
Yeah, they got some guys that are over there that are going to be some first rounders. They have a lot of talent on that team. But the one thing that I always look at when you're starting to look at the hype of the SEC, number one, Texas is now going into the SEC.
Uh-oh. We lost Hardge. See if we can get him back. Yeah, we got him back. You there?
And look at it. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Okay. But yeah, you start looking at all the teams that are in there and the possibility of it all, and you say, okay, which one of these teams do you believe is going to be an SEC team that wins the national championship? Chances are it looks like it, right? Because there's so many teams that are involved in it. But then you also got to look across the nation. There's some teams in the ACC that are pretty talented as well. But looking at the strength of the SEC, some teams that are getting in at 13 and 17, their pitching will be something that we'll pay attention to as well. Which team will have the best pitching throughout the tournament? That's going to be the biggest question.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hardge, I know we dropped you for a second. You came back. The audio is pretty rough when you came back. It's like you're in space or something. So if you want to try to pop out and pop back in, feel free to do so. If you got to run, I appreciate you having you on. This is Mike Hardge, folks. All things baseball. He's probably gonna try to come back on, but if he can't, we sure appreciate him being on. Get him, follow him on Twitter, man. That's a good follow at Hardball Hardge on Twitter. Let's see if we can get him to come back on. What we were just talking about, the SEC, 11 teams in. I think the obvious question is how many guys do you think the SEC is going to get to Omaha? How many teams do we think we're going to? So there's the opportunity for 8. They have a legit opportunity to get 8 teams to Omaha. They got a team in every bracket, every super regional bracket, and they've got in a lot of cases a couple teams in each super regional bracket. I see you back, Hardge. Give me some audio. See what we sound like.
Yeah, I think we're better now. I got back to my same spot, so I
Perfect.
switch it out. But yeah, so your question about how many teams do you think can be there? Maybe 8. I don't know, maybe 4. I mean, you start looking again. You got to look at their pitching. If their pitching is on point, because at this time, just like basketball is always about the guards when you get to tournament time. When you get to tournament time in baseball, it's all about the pitching. If the pitching is on point, whichever team comes in with the hottest pitching staff, those are the ones that you want to try to pay attention to, because throwing strikes is going to be crucial at this time of the year.
Yeah, you can't afford to give people free passes, especially early on in innings. It's almost like a baseball rule. You give a free pass to a leadoff guy, and somehow the gods love that, and he scores a lot of times. We were just talking about an opportunity for there to be 8 guys there, 8 teams there. The SEC certainly has a lot of really good teams that can pitch, they can hit. I've seen as many as 6 predicted. To me, that would just be crazy. And if they get 6 teams to the College World Series, A, that's got to be a record. B, I would say the answer to my next question is no, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there anybody out there who are the teams you think are capable of sort of ending this SEC streak at 4 championships?
Well, I mean, you if you were going to look and try to dissect who would be in the mix, you got to put North Carolina in that conversation. You got to put Clemson in that conversation, because both of those teams can get hot. And when they get hot, they get real hot. So those are 2 teams. Everybody's wanting to talk about, how did LSU get into this deal? And I know we're trying to figure out who's not going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who's not from the SEC. That's a team that they found a way to get in. They got a lot of talent on that squad, and they're the defending national champions. So it will be something to watch to see how they try to make their way through. But you also got to look at Wake Forest. You got to look at Florida State. These are teams that you can look at and you say, who can dethrone them? Those are teams that are experienced enough to make some things happen.
Yeah, I got Clemson, UNC, and Virginia as a few teams. I think it's all ACC or SEC. I think. I think there's some good coach or some good teams on the West Coast too. But there's no mistaking why baseball is so good in the Southeast and the Atlantic Coast Conference. Those guys get to play baseball like all year long. A lot of these guys are freezing in the snow until April or May sometimes. So yeah, a lot of good baseball players, a lot of good baseball played. It'll be interesting. And that LSU squad.
Don't sleep on Oregon State either.
No, Oregon State's they got a good squad and they've been there before and they've won it here pretty recently. Yeah. So yeah, I just think, man, if they could get 4 to 6 teams, man, you almost got to roll your dice and just bet an SEC team is going to win it. Yeah. But you never know what. And the other interesting thing about the SEC is we've seen this a few times over the last few years. It's not the team you expect out of the SEC that goes on and makes all the waves at the College World Series. Like Ole Miss a few years ago, they were like one and done from the SEC tournament, I think, and went on to win the. They
weren't even supposed to be in the tournament.
That's right.
Yeah. It's because they won the SEC tournament that they got in.
That's it. Yeah. So just craziness all around. It'll be interesting to see a lot of good ball clubs. Well, we're talking about who should make it, who should. There's always one team every single year that's kind of surprises everybody in this tournament. At least one. There's sometimes a couple. Who's your surprise team this year in the NCAA tournament?
That's interesting because I didn't even really want to look at a surprise team in particular, but I will tell you this: Louisiana Tech is a team that they are a solid, scrappy ball club. I got a chance to call a few of their games this year, so I saw them up close and personal. They are a scrappy team that if they can get things going, they're a tough out for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and I looked at the bracket this morning, and there's a lot to look at there. Obviously, 64 teams. The one that kind of popped out to me was Duke, and I know Duke's not like I think they're a 2 seed or a 3 seed in their region, so they're not like a we just snuck in type of team. But I don't think a lot of people think Duke is a College World Series baseball team, and probably didn't think that at the beginning of the season. But they're in that Oklahoma regional, and Oklahoma's not infallible. We saw Texas go up there and win a series in Norman, and then they're paired up with the Florida State super regional if they advance to a super regional, and man, they pounded Florida State like a baby seal in that ACC tournament final. So I think maybe Duke has a chance to maybe slug their way to the College World Series if those bats can stay hot. But you just never know. To your point, you pick Louisiana Tech. I say maybe Duke. We asked 8 other guys. They probably have 8 other answers. And I think that's what makes baseball so awesome, especially this 64-team field. Who do you got winning it all, Hardge?
Well, you don't want to have a team out there from the SEC, but Tennessee is a team that is tough. I got either Tennessee or Georgia making it to the College World Series.
Nice.
And winning it all.
Georgia. I think Georgia's capable if those bats can go. I really like Tennessee as well. The only thing I don't like about Tennessee is they slipped into that number 1 overall seed at the very end, and the number 1 overall seed hardly ever wins the tournament. But man, they're up there in pitching and they're up there in hitting, man. And I think they've been a couple times. They haven't had a lot of great success there. But man, I'll tell you what, when we were there in 2021 and we eliminated Tennessee, I sat around a lot of Tennessee fans at their first game and the elimination game against Texas, and they're ready. Those folks are ready for this. If they make it to Omaha, they are going to take over Omaha like Arkansas style. I don't know if you've ever been up there when Arkansas has been there, but it's an Arkansas home game, and I think if Tennessee makes it, you're going to see that again. I don't know who I would pick after Tennessee, but I really like them. I don't necessarily have a number 2, but I think it's going to be an SEC team again. I will just be shocked if by the time we get to Omaha, there's not 4 to 6 of them there. And they just, teams get tired of having to play through the SEC to get to the damn finals of the College World Series, and one of them does, and they get it done. We will see. We started tomorrow. I think most of the games start around noon. I don't care. We're going to have them on. It's going to be exciting. Hardge, thanks for joining us. As always, man, love the insight, love the conversation. We'll try to get you back on. Maybe next week we'll see if we can work that out and talk about what happened in these regionals. And maybe preview these supers a little bit. We will be back next week regardless to gloat or sulk about whether we won that College Station Regional or got blown up out of there. Either way, we'll be back. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. Guys, have a good weekend. Get hooked, baby. Have a good one, Hardge.
Appreciate you.